The massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the strange mix of sounds that came from 50 different alien species trying to communicate at once. Translator devices hummed, creating a low background noise that never quite went away. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat perfectly still in the human delegation's assigned spot, a small platform that seemed almost insulting compared to the towering structures given to other species. The Zephyrian representative, a 12-foot-tall insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his kind. "The humans request military assistance again," he announced to the assembly. "How amusing. The species that trembles at the first sign of real conflict wants our help." Sarah kept her face neutral, though her jaw tightened slightly. Around the vast chamber, other species began their own forms of mocking sounds. The crystalline vortac chimed in musical tones that roughly translated to derision. The gas-based nebular delegates pulsed with colors that clearly indicated amusement. "Honored council members," Sarah stood, her voice carrying clearly through the translation system. "The Korthak Empire has destroyed 17 human colonies in the past 6 months. We have documented evidence of their war crimes and territorial expansion that violates 12 different galactic treaties." The Altarian delegate, resembling a massive blue octopus, waved several tentacles dismissively. "Wars are won by the strong human. Your species has never shown true strength. In the 300 years since your admission to this council, you have avoided every major conflict." "We choose diplomacy over violence," Sarah replied firmly. This brought a wave of what could only be described as alien laughter. The draconian ambassador, a reptilian humanoid with scales that shifted color with his emotions, leaned forward. "Diplomacy," he hissed. "Your people scatter like frightened animals whenever real fighting begins. The Korthak know this. Why else would they target you so boldly?" Sarah felt her hands clench into fists behind her back, but her voice remained steady. "If the Council will not honor the mutual defense treaties we have signed, then humanity will find another way to address this threat." The Zephyrian clicked his mandibles again. "What will you do, human? Send your merchant marines? Your exploration vessels? We have seen your military records." Every time conflict arose, humans fled or surrendered. The chamber filled with more alien sounds of amusement. Sarah knew they were referring to the colonial wars, where human settlements had indeed been evacuated rather than fight hopeless battles. The Council species saw this as cowardice, not the tactical preservation of civilian lives that it actually was. "The Korthak Empire commands 18 million combat vessels," the Vortac representative chimed. "Their warriors are bred for battle from birth. They have conquered 47 star systems in the past decade alone. What could one small human world possibly do against such might?" Sarah touched her earpiece, receiving a message from Earth. She paused for a moment, then looked up at the assembled delegates with something that might have been a smile. "Council members, I have just received word from my government. Humanity officially withdraws its request for assistance." Her voice carried a strange new confidence. "We will handle the Korthak threat ourselves." The chamber erupted in even louder alien laughter. The draconian scales turned a bright orange, indicating extreme amusement. "Handle it yourselves? With what army, little human?" "We're sending 1 soldier," Sarah said simply. The laughter stopped abruptly. For a moment, the only sound was the humming of the translation devices. "1 soldier?" The Altarian's tentacles writhed in confusion. "Did your translator malfunction?" "No malfunction," Sarah confirmed. "1 soldier, a Navy SEAL." The aliens looked at each other with the universal confusion of beings who had no idea what a Navy SEAL might be. The Zephyrian was the first to recover. "Human, your species continues to surprise us with new depths of foolishness. 1 soldier cannot face the Korthak Empire. This is not strategy. This is suicide. Sarah began gathering her materials. Perhaps. We shall see. This council session is concluded for humanity. As she walked toward the exit, alien voices called after her. They wanted to know what a Navy SEAL was, how one soldier could make any difference, whether this was some kind of elaborate joke. Sarah didn't answer any of them. 3 days later, every species in the council received the same intelligence report. A single human vessel had been detected entering Korthak space. It was not a warship. The energy signatures indicated something roughly the size of a small exploration craft. The Korthak response was swift and overwhelming. 7 battle fleets, totaling nearly 300,000 vessels, moved to intercept. The last communication from the human ship was a brief transmission. SEAL team deployment initiated. Then silence. For 6 hours, the Council species monitored Korthak communications, expecting to hear news of the human vessel's destruction. Instead, something very different began to emerge from their intelligence networks. The first report came from a Korthak military frequency. Command Base Zeta-7 is not responding. An hour later, Industrial Complex Theta Prime has gone dark. Then, multiple communication disruptions across the hegemony, unknown source. The Galactic Council's intelligence officers began working frantically to understand what was happening. The Korthak Empire controlled nearly 200 worlds across 15 star systems. Their military infrastructure was considered the most advanced and heavily defended in the galaxy. Whatever was happening to them shouldn't have been possible. By the end of the first day, 17 major Korthak military installations had gone silent. Their battle fleets were reporting strange equipment failures, navigation malfunctions, and communication blackouts. Several command vessels had simply vanished from all sensor arrays. The Zephyrian intelligence chief brought the reports to the emergency council session that had been called to discuss these mysterious events. Something is systematically dismantling the Korthak war machine, he announced to the assembled delegates. Their production facilities are shutting down. Their communication networks are failing. Their logistics chains have been completely severed. The draconian delegate's scales shifted to deep purple, indicating serious concern. Who could accomplish such a thing? Are the Void Hunters returning? The Void Hunters were legendary, an ancient species that had supposedly been capable of single-handedly destroying entire civilizations before vanishing mysteriously eons ago. We detect no Void Hunter technology signatures, the Zephyrian continued. In fact, we detect very little of anything. Whatever is doing this operates with complete stealth. The Altarian representative spoke next, tentacles coiled tightly with nervousness. Could it be the human vessel? The one that entered Korthak space? Alien laughter began again, but it was much more subdued than before. The idea that one human could cause this level of systematic destruction seemed impossible, but the timing was becoming difficult to ignore. "Honored delegates!" A new voice spoke from the chamber's communication system. It was Sarah Chen, speaking from the human embassy. "I thought you might be interested in a progress report from our Navy SEAL." The chamber fell completely silent. "In the past 24 hours," Sarah continued, her voice carrying clearly through the crystal chamber, "our operative has successfully neutralized 43% of the Korthak Empire's military command structure. Strategic targets have included their primary weapons manufacturing facilities, their hyperspace communication relays, and 17 of their most advanced battle stations." The silence stretched longer. "But this is impossible," the Vortak representative finally chimed. "One being cannot accomplish such tasks alone." "Can't they?" Sarah's voice held that same strange confidence it had carried 3 days ago. "The Korthak Empire is learning something that humanity has known for a very long time. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming." The Zephyrian delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. "What exactly is a Navy SEAL?" "A Navy SEAL," Sarah explained, is a human who has been trained in methods of warfare that most species in this galaxy have never imagined. They are experts in infiltration, sabotage, and elimination. They operate alone or in small teams. They specialize in impossible missions. She paused, letting that sink in. What you call cowardice, we call preparation. Every time humanity has avoided direct confrontation, we have been studying our enemies, learning their weaknesses, developing new methods. The Korthak Empire is about to discover why a species of cowards has survived and thrived in a galaxy full of warriors. The emergency session continued for hours as more reports came in from Korthak space. By the end of the second day, nearly 70% of their military infrastructure had been compromised. Their mighty fleet was scattered, many ships running on backup systems or stranded without functional navigation. The most disturbing report came from a Korthak general who had been captured during what appeared to be a targeted strike on their high command. The shadow moves through our most secure facilities as if they were not there. It knows our codes, our protocols, our hidden weaknesses. This is not war, this is precision surgery. For the first time in the 300 years since humanity had joined the Galactic Council, the other species began to wonder if they had seriously misunderstood something fundamental about the quiet species from the small blue world. The human ambassador had not been boasting or making empty threats. She had been stating a simple fact. Humanity was sending one soldier to deal with the Korthak Empire, and somehow, impossibly, it was working. Master Chief Petty Officer Marcus Ghost Rodriguez had been operating behind enemy lines for 72 hours, and the Korthak Empire still had no idea he existed. Their sensor systems, designed to detect massive battle fleets and energy weapons, completely missed one human moving through their territory with equipment that had been specifically designed for invisibility. The small exploration vessel that had carried him into Korthak space was now drifting in the debris field of a destroyed asteroid, its minimal heat signature lost among the cosmic background radiation. Marcus had departed in what the Navy called a ghost pod, a stealth insertion craft so advanced that even Earth's own sensors could barely detect it. His first target had been the Korthak Military Communication Hub on Kepler Station, a massive space facility that coordinated fleet movements across 3 star systems. The station's defenses were formidable: energy shields, automated weapon platforms, and a garrison of 10,000 Korthak warriors. It should have been impregnable. Marcus had entered through the waste disposal system. The Korthak, like most warrior species, focused their defensive thinking on direct assault. They armored their main entrances, monitored their docking bays, and scanned for approaching ships. They paid very little attention to the mundane infrastructure that kept their stations running. Moving through the maintenance tunnels in his adaptive camouflage suit, Marcus had been functionally invisible. The suit adjusted its appearance to match his surroundings while suppressing his heat signature and muffling any sound he made. To the Korthak sensors, he simply didn't exist. His target wasn't the station's reactor or its weapon systems. Those would be too obvious, and their destruction would alert the entire Korthak fleet to his presence. Instead, Marcus had found the station's central computer core and inserted a small device that looked like nothing more than a piece of loose wiring. The device was humanity's gift to asymmetric warfare, a quantum infiltration virus that could learn and adapt to any computer system in real time. It didn't destroy anything immediately. Instead, it began mapping the entire Korthak communication network, learning their protocols, identifying their command structures. While the virus worked, Marcus had moved to his secondary objectives. Kepler Station housed 3 of the Korthak Empire's most senior admirals. Instead of attempting to kill them, which would have caused an immediate manhunt, he had planted micro-trackers on each one and gained access to their personal communication devices. The trackers were no larger than grains of sand and completely undetectable by Korthak technology. They would allow Earth's intelligence network to monitor every communication, every order, every strategic decision made by the Korthak High Command. By the time Marcus left the station, he had effectively turned their own communication hub into a weapon against them. The quantum virus was already spreading through their network, creating hidden backdoors and system vulnerabilities that could be exploited later. His extraction from Kepler Station had been even simpler than his infiltration. He had simply walked out through the main docking bay, invisible to their sensors, and stolen a Korthak courier ship. The ship's pilot never knew what happened. One moment he was conducting a routine pre-flight check. The next, he was unconscious and secured in his own cargo hold. Marcus had accessed the ship's navigation computer and added himself as an authorized crew member. To anyone checking, he was now Sub-Commander Threx, a low-level logistics officer with clearance to travel throughout Korthak space. The stolen identity gave him access to military facilities, supply depots, and communication networks across the Empire. Over the next 2 days, Marcus had visited 12 major installations, each time making small modifications that would have devastating cumulative effects. At the Draconis Prime Weapons Manufacturing Complex, he had introduced microscopic flaws into their production line. The flaws were so small that quality control systems couldn't detect them, but they would cause weapons to fail at critical moments during combat. At the Hydra Sector Fleet Maintenance Facility, he had corrupted their parts inventory system. Ships would receive incorrect components, leading to system failures and equipment malfunctions. At the Titan's Gate Strategic Planning Center, he had gained access to their tactical database and introduced subtle errors into their fleet positioning algorithms. Korthak ships would begin arriving at coordinates that put them at tactical disadvantages or left them vulnerable to ambush. Each action was small, nearly undetectable, but together they were systematically undermining the entire Korthak war machine. Marcus wasn't fighting them with superior firepower or advanced technology. He was using their own size and complexity against them. The Korthak Empire was learning the hard way that the larger and more complex a system became, the more vulnerable it was to someone who understood how to exploit its weaknesses. His most audacious operation had come on the 4th day, when he infiltrated the Korthak Supreme Command vessel, the Inevitable Victory. The massive dreadnought was 3 miles long and housed the Empire's highest military leadership, including General Vorthak himself, the architect of the attacks on human colonies. Getting aboard the ship required everything Marcus had learned in 20 years of special operations. He had positioned his stolen courier ship to intercept the Inevitable Victory's supply convoy, then transferred himself to a cargo container filled with ammunition. Lying motionless for 6 hours among artillery shells, Marcus had been delivered directly into the heart of the enemy flagship. Once inside, he had moved through the ship's vast interior like a ghost, avoiding patrols and security checkpoints. The Korthak had designed their ship to resist external attack, but they had never considered the possibility of an enemy already inside their defenses. Marcus had access to maintenance corridors, service tunnels, and utility shafts that the ship's crew barely knew existed. His primary target was General Vorthak's personal quarters, but killing the general would have been too obvious. Instead, Marcus had accessed the general's personal computer system and downloaded every strategic plan, every troop movement, every tactical analysis that the Korthak had developed. He had also planted a new type of device, something that human intelligence had been developing specifically for this mission. The device would intercept and modify the general's orders before they were transmitted to the fleet. Minor changes in timing, positioning, and target priorities that would seem like normal adjustments but would actually create tactical disasters. But Marcus's real masterstroke had come when he accessed the ship's internal communication system. He had recorded a message in perfect Korthak military dialect, something that had taken him months of preparation to master. The message was simple. Unknown infiltrator detected in Section 7. All security teams respond immediately. He had then programmed the message to broadcast on random intervals throughout the ship, creating confusion and forcing the crew to constantly search for an intruder that they could never find. The psychological effect was devastating. The crew of the Empire's most secure vessel began to doubt their own security systems. Meanwhile, Marcus had exited the ship the same way he entered, hidden in a cargo container being transferred to another vessel. By the time the Korthak realized that their security alerts were false, he was already gone. The stolen intelligence he had gathered was being transmitted back to Earth in real time through a quantum communication network that the Korthak couldn't detect or intercept. Human analysts were using the information to predict Korthak movements and identify additional targets for sabotage. But perhaps the most important effect of Marcus's mission was psychological. The Korthak Empire was built on the idea of strength through direct confrontation. They conquered worlds through overwhelming force and maintained control through fear of their military might. A single human moving unseen through their most secure facilities, systematically dismantling their infrastructure, contradicted everything they believed about warfare. Reports were beginning to filter through their ranks about the ghost warrior who could strike anywhere, any time, without warning. Korthak soldiers were becoming paranoid, checking their equipment constantly and jumping at shadows. Their officers were second-guessing orders and questioning the security of their own bases. The mighty empire that had terrorized the galaxy was beginning to fear an enemy they couldn't see or understand. The Galactic Council was monitoring these developments with growing amazement. Intelligence reports showed that the Korthak military was in a state of near panic. Fleet movements had become erratic, supply lines were failing, command structures were breaking down, all because of one human. The Zephyrian intelligence chief had presented his latest analysis to an emergency session of the Council's Security Committee. The human operative has single-handedly created more strategic damage than most species could accomplish with entire battle fleets, he reported. The Korthak Empire is experiencing a complete systemic failure. The Altarian representative's tentacles coiled nervously. How is this possible? What kind of training creates such capabilities? The draconian delegate's scales had turned a deep blue, indicating profound concern. Are all humans capable of such operations? These were questions that the Council was only beginning to understand they should have asked 300 years ago. The quiet species from the blue world had abilities that none of the galaxy's warrior races had ever imagined. And Marcus Rodriguez was just getting started. The collapse of the Korthak Empire began on the 7th day of Marcus Rodriguez's mission, though the Empire's leaders wouldn't recognize it for several more hours. Marcus had spent the previous night infiltrating the Nexus Prime facility, the Korthak Empire's central command and control center for their entire military network. The facility was buried 3 miles beneath the surface of their capital world, protected by layers of armor, energy shields, and the most sophisticated security systems in known space. Getting inside had required Marcus to pose as a maintenance worker for the underground transport system that carried supplies to the facility. He had stolen the identity 2 days earlier, along with the worker's genetic authorization codes and biometric data. The real worker was currently unconscious and secured in an abandoned mining station, completely unaware that his identity was being used to penetrate the most secure facility in the galaxy. The transport system provided access to the facility's lowest levels, where the basic infrastructure was maintained. From there, Marcus had worked his way upward through service tunnels and utility corridors, avoiding the main security checkpoints and patrol routes. His target was the facility's Quantum Command Core, the massive computer system that coordinated all Korthak military operations across their empire. The core was protected by multiple layers of security, including automated defense systems that would incinerate anything that approached without proper authorization. Marcus bypassed all of it by entering through the cooling system. The quantum processors that ran the command core generated enormous amounts of heat, requiring a complex cooling network to keep them operational. Marcus had modified his suit's life support systems to allow him to operate in the supercooled environment, then entered the cooling network through an external maintenance port. Swimming through liquid coolant for nearly an hour, Marcus had reached the central processing chamber. The quantum command core was a magnificent piece of technology, a crystalline structure the size of a small building that could process trillions of calculations per second. It was also completely vulnerable to the small device that Marcus planted at its base. The device wasn't designed to destroy the quantum core. Destroying it would have been obvious sabotage, and the Korthak would have known immediately that they were under attack. Instead, the device was much more subtle and far more devastating. It was a logic bomb that would activate during the next major military operation, introducing systematic errors into the command core's calculations. Fleet movements would be misdirected. Supply shipments would be sent to wrong locations. Communication networks would relay contradictory orders. The Korthak Empire would effectively attack itself. But Marcus's most important target wasn't in the facility's computer systems. It was in the detention levels, where the Empire was holding prisoners captured during their attacks on human colonies. The official report stated that no humans had been taken alive during the Korthak raids. The reality was very different. The Korthak had captured nearly 300 humans and were holding them for interrogation about Earth's defenses and military capabilities. Finding and rescuing the prisoners was Marcus's primary mission objective. Everything else, the sabotage, the intelligence gathering, the psychological warfare, was secondary to bringing those people home. The detention levels were designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. Each cell was surrounded by multiple layers of energy barriers and monitored by automated security systems. The prisoners were kept in induced comas to prevent escape attempts. Marcus spent hours studying the facility's detention protocols, learning the security rotations, and identifying the system vulnerabilities. The Korthak had designed their prison to prevent escape from the inside, but they had never considered the possibility of a rescue attempt from the outside. His plan was audacious, even by special operations standards. Instead of trying to break the prisoners out individually, Marcus was going to steal an entire prison transport vessel and use it to evacuate all 300 humans simultaneously. The transport vessels were used to move large groups of prisoners between facilities. They had their own life support systems, medical facilities, and long-range navigation capabilities. Most importantly, they were authorized to leave the facility without extensive security clearance. Marcus's first step was to access the facility's prisoner transport schedule and create a fake transfer order. Using the access he had gained to their computer systems, he created an authorization for the immediate transfer of all human prisoners to a high-security interrogation facility in a distant star system. The fake order appeared completely legitimate in the Korthak system, complete with proper authorization codes and command signatures. To anyone checking, it was just another routine prisoner transfer. The next challenge was getting control of the transport vessel itself. The ships were operated by specially trained Korthak crews who would not easily be replaced or impersonated. Marcus solved this problem by using the facility's own security systems against the crew. He triggered a containment alert in the section where the transport crews were housed, causing the automated systems to seal the entire area and release sleep gas to protect the crew from contamination. With the real crew unconscious and safely secured, Marcus was free to take control of the transport vessel. The ship's systems recognized him as an authorized facility commander, another identity he had created in their computer network. Loading the prisoners required careful timing. Marcus had to revive them from their induced comas gradually, ensuring they were stable enough for transport while avoiding any complications that might alert medical monitoring systems. As each human prisoner was brought aboard, Marcus briefly explained who he was and what was happening. Many of them were colonists who had never seen a military uniform, let alone a Navy SEAL. They couldn't understand how one soldier had penetrated the most secure facility in the Empire. "How many of you are there?" asked Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, a xenobiologist from the New Geneva colony who had been captured 3 months earlier. "Just me," Marcus replied, as he helped her into the transport vessel's medical bay. She stared at him in disbelief. "One person did all this?" "Sometimes one person is enough," Marcus said simply. The evacuation took 6 hours. During that time, Marcus had to maintain the illusion that everything was proceeding normally while quietly disabling various security systems that might have detected his deception. The most nerve-wracking moment came when a Korthak security commander decided to personally inspect the prisoner transfer. Marcus met him at the transport vessel's airlock, wearing a holographic disguise that made him appear to be a Korthak officer. "Commander Thek wants a final prisoner count before departure," the security commander announced. 297 prisoners accounted for and secured," Marcus replied in perfect Korthak military dialect. "Transfer authorization confirmed." The security commander glanced at the transport vessel, then at Marcus. For a moment, Marcus thought his disguise might have been detected. His hand moved silently toward the weapon concealed in his uniform. "Proceed with transfer," the commander said finally. "The interrogation facility is expecting your arrival within 48 hours. "Understood," Marcus nodded. "Departure in 10 minutes. As the security commander walked away, Marcus felt the first moment of tension he had experienced during the entire mission. In 10 minutes, he would be attempting to fly a stolen Korthak transport vessel out of the most secure facility in the galaxy, carrying 300 rescued prisoners. The launch went flawlessly. The facility's traffic control systems cleared the transport for departure, and Marcus flew the vessel toward the coordinates of the fake interrogation facility. As soon as they were beyond the range of Korthak sensors, he changed course toward human space. Behind them, the logic bomb in the Quantum Command Core activated exactly on schedule. The Korthak Empire's next major military operation was the launch of their ultimate assault on Earth, a massive fleet movement designed to end humanity's resistance once and for all. Instead of coordinating a devastating attack, the compromised Command Corps sent contradictory orders to hundreds of Korthak ships. Fleets that were supposed to rendezvous instead flew toward empty space. Supply vessels carrying ammunition were redirected to distant star systems. The Empire's most powerful dreadnoughts received orders to attack each other. The mighty Korthak war machine turned on itself in a spectacular display of friendly fire and tactical confusion. Within hours, the Empire had lost more ships to their own mistakes than humanity had managed to destroy in months of fighting. When the Galactic Council's emergency session convened to discuss these unprecedented events, Ambassador Sarah Chen was once again standing before the assembled delegates. This time, however, the alien representatives were not laughing. "The Korthak Empire has formally requested a ceasefire," Sarah announced. "They are prepared to return all captured territory and pay reparations for their attacks on human colonies." The chamber was completely silent. "Additionally," Sarah continued, "they have requested that the human operative cease his activities in their territory. They describe his presence as strategically unacceptable and operationally impossible to counter." The Zephyrian delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. "One soldier accomplished this?" "One Navy SEAL," Sarah confirmed. "As I told this council 1 week ago, sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming." The Draconian ambassador's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple that indicated profound respect. "We have underestimated your species, Ambassador Chen. The warrior traditions of the galaxy will need to be reconsidered." "Perhaps," Sarah replied. "Or perhaps the galaxy simply needs to understand that there are many different ways to be strong." The rescue transport carrying Marcus Rodriguez and the freed prisoners arrived at Earth 3 days later. The rescued colonists were reunited with their families, and Marcus disappeared back into the classified world of special operations. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, was forced to completely revise their understanding of human military capabilities. Intelligence agencies across the galaxy began studying human tactical doctrine, trying to understand how one species could develop such devastating asymmetric warfare techniques. The Korthak Empire never recovered from the systematic damage that Marcus had inflicted during his 7-day mission. Their military structure collapsed, their expansion was permanently halted, and their reputation as unstoppable conquerors was utterly destroyed. But perhaps the most significant change was in the way the galaxy viewed humanity itself. The species that had been dismissed as cowards for 300 years was suddenly recognized as possessing capabilities that none of the traditional warrior races had ever imagined. The quiet humans from the small blue world had taught the galaxy a new lesson about the nature of strength. Sometimes the greatest power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to strike precisely where your enemy was most vulnerable. And sometimes, when the stakes were high enough, one human was more than sufficient to change the course of galactic history. The Galactic Council would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again.